I'm constantly looking on social media for story ideas because there's so many different Facebook pages, Instagram pages, and honestly, that's sometimes stories that the community is talking about and wants to hear more on.
People who are misinformed tend to stay misinformed. It's really on everyone to hold each other accountable to what is true.
You need quality in all those digital formats. Especially younger people, I think, don't have time. They won't tolerate it. They find it irritating. Angrily go right past it and say, no, that ain't it. I'm going somewhere else.
In a world where information is literally at our fingertips, traditional news sources, once the pillars of truth and accountability, are struggling to connect with a very generation that holds its future in its hands. Young adults are turning away, seeking news in new, uncharted territories. But why? What's driving this disconnection, and what does it mean for the future of journalism? In this series, we're going to dive into the shifting media landscape, the rise of social media, and the voices of a generation that feels more disconnected from newsrooms than ever. Join me as I explore the challenges, innovations, and the possibilities for bridging the gap between young adults and the news that they need. First, let's hear from a digital news manager.
My name is Matthew Nuttall. I am digital content manager at KITV4 Island News. I have been in the industry all on the digital side for 15 years. Digital news is the news that you would see on broadcast or that you'd expect to see on broadcast, but in digital form. I think my main concern is that where people are getting their information is not necessarily vetted. Confirmed news sources and misinformation is really easy to come by. I think there needs to be regulation on what is offered up as news. If you're on Facebook or you're on Twitter, sometimes you can be fed something. If you don't think critically, you can believe, is this really happening? I think that everyone should be able to say what they say. Free speech and all of that. I think what becomes a problem is, for example, the current news cycle that we're in right now is this horrible, awful information about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio that are stealing pets and ducks and eating them. And it's had real world repercussions for those people. There's been bomb threats at schools and hospitals, and this is just flat out wrong, lie information. And I think someone should be held accountable for that. There are being lies told, and news sources are then sharing those lies. And maybe not necessarily like outright refuting them. They are sharing those lies more or less for engagement. And I think that engagement farming by news sources should not be the business model. It should really be mostly about getting out what is the truth. People in our industry, particularly people in digital, we should be, kind of leading the charge in making sure that we are saying the facts. It's Facebook and it's Twitter, Instagram, Threads, TikTok now. I think it's very important to reach the audience where they are. The editorial standards that you have for anything, right? Be it a newspaper, a magazine, broadcast television, they have to be in place for, across the board.
A lot of the time we use social media to find story ideas because there are interesting stories out there. But once we do, we have to make sure to verify it and make sure it's credible. My name is Mika Miyashima. I work for KITV4 Island News, and I am an evening anchor. I've been at KITV for just under 8 years. It can get so muddled with social media and everyone putting their opinions out there. I do think it's important for people to really kind of stay on track and know what's truth and what's just opinions. I think social media benefits us and it also hurts news. We get a lot of story ideas from social media. It's so easy to just take a video and upload it to social media. So we get a lot of news tips, and with Zoom and everything, we can just hop on and grab an interview fast. But I know a lot of people turn to social media maybe instead of the news now. There's ups and downs to both, I think.
Reporters especially should be using their own social media, their station social media notoriety to kind of inflate their own stories. They're the face of these things that they're telling. It isn't a situation where, I'm only going to tweet about something that I know is going to lead the news day. It's about growing that image and that trust with the audience, that you're out there, you're covering the community.
I like to post my stories afterwards when it's a story that I feel good about and that I really like. People will comment on it, I'll get feedback from people. And sometimes it gets shared and that's beneficial to the person who we did the story on, who might need to be raising money because they lost their house to a fire. It is really a great tool to get help to the people who need it.
I encourage creativity. I want us to be able to branch out and be at the forefront of all of these social media that we don't even know about that are coming down the line. You have to have the standard of a journalist. You have to have that integrity, because if you lose that integrity, then it doesn't matter what you're saying.
I think it's just important to get out in the community and talk to people and find out what they want to know about or share their stories. Just on our end, making sure that we really get out there and are giving people a voice, whether it's younger people or older people, because that's what people are interested in. They want to watch stories that they care about.
Our next guest offers a different perspective, one shaped by years of guiding traditional broadcast teams.
My name is Bill Brennan, a longtime media person, been in the media for 40 plus years. As I watch news today, the product itself hasn't really changed much. Television news story is still pretty much the same as it was when I was more involved in the business. I think what's different is the entire media landscape has expanded so much. There used to be radio and TV, showing my age, but there was no cable TV when I first started. So you had your major networks. You had CBS, ABC, and NBC. And they had their local affiliates, and those were your viewing choices. But now, cable and streaming and social media and apps and podcasts are all competing for any one person's attention. The number of people, or the percentage of people watching television news, is smaller, diluted by just the increase in the number of available options for people. There was a time when television news and television news anchors and reporters were some of the most trusted people in surveys and polls among Americans. They believed and trusted the news that was being presented to them. In more recent times, in the last 15, 20 years, maybe a little more, there's a growing distrust of the people who present the news. I don't know that it's young adults that necessarily distrust local news. And some of that is just a sharing of their parents' distrust of the news. That's where they learn it from. They would rather not sit down in front of a television set for 30 minutes, instead use their mobile devices to check out and scroll and see what is happening and what is new.
Bill reminisces on how different things were just a decade or two ago, but he also acknowledges the inevitability of change.
I think in this day and age, young people getting into broadcast journalism need to be more multimedia savvy. Back when I was in the day, there were so many people involved in the putting together of a news story. There would be a camera person, audio person, editor, writer, and there would be a reporter. There were 5 people. Those 5 jobs are now oftentimes done by 1. Maybe 2 people. Good stories, well told, are the key to being a successful video television news operation. I would rather see good story than all hard news. You can present hard news in a good way. Well told, well written, factual. But I think there's room for the stories that tug at people's heartstrings. Everybody has a story.
So what's the answer? How do traditional news outlets adapt to a generation that's constantly moving, swiping, and scrolling?
Mission and the object for TV news operations now is, what do we make available to younger audience members to be engaged with us? It's so much more important today than it was back in the day to have a very engaging website, to have a presence on social media, especially Twitter and Facebook. You have to have an app in this day and age, because those are the places that younger adults go to for their news. And then you have to have them kind of play off each other, all those formats. The web is feeding what we call the linear end of things, and linear is feeding digital, and they all kind of work together, each adding a little bit more to the mix so that you as a viewer or someone who views online feels like I need to go to the rest of these formats to be fully informed on this issue.
The future of news may be uncertain, but one thing is clear: how we engage with the stories that shape our world will continue to evolve just as it has for generations.
The TV news industry adapts to its use of digital, and it continues to draw people there and monetizes the digital end of things so that television news outlet can continue to make money. I don't know. I mean, I think there may be, just as you see in newspapers, there may be fewer. Some might not make it, or things will be reduced. Where you used to have news on at 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10, now you're only doing 5, 6, and 10, which it used to be, and then news expanded, but I think that's a hard thing to keep up. Just as there are fewer newspapers available in these towns and cities, so too might there be fewer television stations in any market.
As the younger generation grows up, I think we'll see that flip to where more attention and even like leadership at television stations start to shift their assets toward the digital side. In the next 10 years, I think that getting news in non-traditional ways, like from your phone, will be the norm. I don't know if that is going to be like something like YouTube, TikTok. I think TikTok has already become a major way that younger people get news and news snippets. I think there will be digital-only broadcasts mixed in with the traditional type of broadcast.
I hope that it sticks around and is doing well, but it's really hard to say with social media or even streaming services kind of just changing the way TV and news is. Hopefully it's doing well, because it's important to get your accurate information from news sources, but I don't know, hard to say.
And as long as we stay informed, curious, and critical, the truth will always find a way to reach us, whether through our screens or our phones. Next time, we dive into the world of young adults and social media, exploring their experiences, trust issues with news outlets, and the voices shaping digital content today. I'm Kaylee Pasco-Martinez, and this has been our exploration of the shifting news landscape. Stay informed, stay curious.